Sensori Gaguse, thank you for tuning in to Mizuchi Dojo Radio, a weekly podcast featuring discussions between the best martial artists in Western New York on a variety of martial arts concepts. I'm your host, Bill Reynolds, and joining me today are these panelists. We have Rob Guida, training since 2010, second degree black belt in Kenpo Karate. Also joining us, we have, I know who you are, but I'm going to have your write-up. Dillon Pinkham, trained since 15 years old, 5th degree black belt in karate. And Chris Poet, trained since 1990, 6th degree black belt in Bushido-kai. You can find this information and more about our panelists in the show notes. This episode, we discussed talking about, is there an expiration date on a black belt? And that is to say, if somebody were to earn a black belt of whatever degree, but then take a break in training, are they still that degree, or do they sort of regress over time? So I think in no particular order, let's go with Chris Hajime.
Well, it's weird. Over the years that I've been training, I've seen many black belts, where people achieve their black belts, whether it's first degree, second degree, and so forth. They once they get their black belt, sometimes they stop training, and time goes by, and it brings up the question is everything that you learn when you're a black belt, over time it fades away. I think it's you lose tools out of your toolbox per se. I mean, the stuff that you learn when you're actively training, I think you forget over time.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Rob.
I don't know. It's interesting, right? I mean, um, I think about the schools I went to when I was in the Army, and so you go to these schools and you do these things, and you can say that you did it, right? They never take that away from you, but you might never do it again. Like you might go to rappel school, you might go to jump master school. I went to airborne school and ranger school, and like you're qualified, like you've done it, like you've got the tab, you've earned the thing, like it's yours. But you may never do it again in 30 years because you went to a school and that was it. Um, so I think I kind of think of it more like that. I think it's definitions that are important, right? Like you earn the black belt, you can say that, like I earned a black belt, but I don't think you could say anymore that well, when I you have to qualify, you have to qualify it. I don't train. You have to say, I don't train anymore. I earned a black belt 20 years ago. I don't train anymore, and something along those lines of you know, I did it, I earned it, it's mine, but that skill set's gone. And that's just
Okay.
that's just somebody being honest with themselves too, right? And everybody else. But I find it weird to say that they earned it. So, they still have it, but they couldn't walk back into a school and teach.
Hmm. If they ever could have.
If
Uh,
they ever could have. That's a good
yeah.
point.
Yeah.
I mean, they couldn't walk back into school and say, "Hey, I'm a black belt in Kempo. I haven't trained in 20 years. Can I join your adult black belt class?" Like, no. Let's let's kind of like slowly progress it and let's see where you're at, and then sure we'll talk about it. But that's a delusional person anyway, right? That would show up after 20 years and say, "Let me join the adult black belt class."
Maybe. We'll get into some crosstalk on this later because this is already very interesting to me. Dylan, opening thoughts.
Um, I don't no, I don't think there's an expiration date on a black belt. I don't think there's an expiration date on the knowledge. Now I think it's like any other profession or any other skill set where you need to continue to train to be proficient in it. Kind of like what Rob said about well, you earned it, you have it, you knew it at one point. But how proficient are you now? Do I think that you would lose those things out of your said toolbox, as I believe Chris mentioned? No, I don't think that you would lose those things out of your toolbox. I think that if you trained the way you were, if you trained for okay, if you trained for self defense and you were proficient in that at some point, I don't believe that they would just drop off. I think that you would still have it. But in order to teach, in order to say, hey, I am a teacher, I am an instructor, I think, yeah, you'd have to continue your search, continue to practice. Um, so that's my thought.
Okay. Oh, great. I'm glad we have some different opinions on this. I guess where I fall before we get open up this discussion to, just trying to get more at where people are coming from with their own opinions. Um, I'm in line with Rob in that I do feel like a person earns a rank, it's theirs forever. You don't usually strip them of a rank, as it were. Not that that was being said. We're talking more about the idea of it somehow not being reflected in the person anymore, expiring or rusting out or what have you. So I think there is a distinction there where I think, you accomplish something, you've accomplished it. I earned a doctorate, I always have a doctorate. Will I always have a license? That's another thing. And I guess that's sort of like the difference there, right? Is that I did achieve a doctorate, but it could be determined at some point in my career that I'm no longer considered a competent professional and would need to be stripped of my license and ability to practice. And so to that end, what you're saying with the black belt is it possible that they could be evaluated and say, well, at this time you may have earned the black belt, but you are no longer competent enough to instruct others in this system, or at least at the level that you once were at. So, yeah, because I think in an earlier episode, I don't know if you guys caught it, we were talking about the idea of self-promotion. And in the show notes for that episode, I don't know how it works in your guys' systems, but in mine, it was that you can only promote somebody up to 2 degrees below you. So if you're fifth degree, you can promote somebody to third degree or some math like that. But obviously, at least in our system, the highest we go is 10. And so who promotes the ninth degree black belt? Because there's no 11th degree black belt to promote them. And certainly who promotes somebody to 10th? There's no 12th degree to promote them. So there obviously has to be a different way that a person would get to there. But it just goes with this idea that, like, do you really, in the other direction, do you ever go down in degrees? And I don't think that really happens, but I think it is possible that you might lose your proficiency. All right, I want to speak more about that, but I know you guys have been patiently listening to just my little rant there. So let's open this up to further discussion. I guess we started with Chris. You were
Yeah.
talking about like skills getting rusty, and it seems sort of similar to what Rob was saying about yeah, there could be a time where you're no longer good enough to teach.
Right. Well, far as you know, I mean, first off, I don't think anybody should have their black belt like removed from them, right? So, if you got a black belt, it's almost like getting like a college degree, right? You've earned it. That's it. But I truly do think that there's a lot of people that get their black belts and they stop, like and life gets in the way. They're doing something else. Maybe it's the family. And then it's time for them to come back and train. Those that stuff that they learned and they drilled probably hundreds of times. I think it's going to be very rusty. I don't think maybe they have maybe when they had a black belt they had maybe 30 different things to do off a right punch, you know, and now they can only remember five things. You know, maybe that's all you need is five things. But I truly think there's you you use it or lose it kind of thing. Almost almost like college, right? I mean, college was just a few years ago, wasn't it, Bill?
Mm, no, but I will say this, it would remind me again, like when I distinguish between the idea of having a doctorate and having a license. Do any of you guys, do you operate under certification or licensure to do your day job? No? Okay.
Not my day job, no,
Okay. So, yeah,
but I know what you mean.
so I have to every 3 years I have to renew my license with New York State, and the way that I demonstrate I'm able to renew is that they require that I complete something like I should probably know this. Something like 36 credit hours of continuing education every 3 years, or roughly 12 credit hours every year. Once a month, I should be doing an hour of training. And that's how they feel I can maintain my proficiency and still be licensed and allowed to practice. Um, Social work, I think, is the same way. I don't know about medicine. They get licensed too, but I don't know if they are required to engage on CEs, but I'm pretty sure they are because they're usually at the same meetings I'm at. It's sort of like the idea that you stay relevant because I got my doctorate in 1997. I mean, there's been a lot of developments since then. Like there was no treatment for PTSD when I was in training, and that came out really in 2010 and has since been still developing. It doesn't look at all the way it looked when it first came out. Um, just as one example, but I think from bringing it back to martial arts, in my system, we borrowed our kata set primarily from the Ishinryu curriculum. But since I've diverged off, there's a kata called Shinto, and uh, and I've decided based upon other katas in the system and even a move within the system that we're now going to change three elements to that kata. Now, somebody who hasn't been training with me, if they stop training with me for 3 years, or certainly if they're not training with me now, and they were to like leave the school and come back, they wouldn't know that. They wouldn't know how I'm training Shinto kata at that point because they weren't there for the change or the reason behind it. And so, I don't think they'd be capable of training if they just left, stopped training for whatever reasons. Like I think you were saying, Chris, life happens and you have
Right.
to leave. Um, you were saying, Dylan, that you think a person doesn't like go backwards, that they've attained it and they maintain it. Or could you say more about that? I mean, based on what we're saying now?
So for me, if I get, and I have had uh, black belt instructors who may have trained in different systems come to me and say, hey, I'd like to train in your system. I'd like to train at your school. And I treat them like a black belt, as long as they have a good attitude, as long as they're respectful, as long as um, they're in the right state of mind as far as why they're walking into my school. I treat them like a black belt. They they may not know exactly how I'm teaching, what I'm teaching, um, but I believe that they could have the knowledge to be able to articulate it, see it, um, know what's going on, and have that, what's the word I wanted, that humbleness to be a teacher and a student, a student and a teacher at the same time. Um, I try to treat all my students regardless of what their rank when they okay, well, we're talking about black belts right now. So I try to treat them with that respect. They earned it. So for example, like I said, I had a student, a man come in, he studied Danzanru and totally different than what I do. Don't have the self-defense per se. Solid in the locks, solid in the throws, solid in the jitsu, but lacked a little bit of the self-defense that I did. I didn't make him start at white. I treated him like a black belt, and he learned just like everybody else. So, um, yeah, and I don't think that you just lose it. I don't believe that. I think that if you spend the time to become proficient, you keep it. Does it get rusty? Do you forget pieces for kata and stuff? Well, yeah, that's a lot of information. But but do you forget to recognize it? Or do you forget to be able to teach it to go, hey, you know what? Take that step or change that footwork or sharpen that stance because you've done it. Um, so I don't know if that answered your question, but that's my thought on that.
Yeah. Other reactions, Chris, Rob?
I mean, it hasn't been my experience. I mean, like the things that I've done, um, I mean, just basic like like soldiering skills we did every single day, like that stuff, like it was drilled into us. I mean, and it's gone now. I mean, it's been 20 years since I've done any of that. It's gone. I couldn't do it. I'm not saying I couldn't pick it up quickly. If someone spent some time with me, but you lose it way quicker than most people think. I mean, it's
Mm.
gone. I mean, just the skill set to be able to do those drills and to do those things, and it's the same thing with martial arts. I mean, once you stop training, I mean, truly stop training, not go from one school to another. I mean, stop training. You stop training, and because of wife and house and kids and mortgage, and you look back 10 years ago, it's not that you don't remember the material, you can't physically do it anymore.
Mm.
Like those skills are gone. Now they might come back faster because you've already done it, but no, I think it's gone. And I don't think it's realistic to expect someone who's been gone for 20 years to be able to perform or execute anything that they learned when they haven't trained in that long.
Mm.
8 months, sure, you lose some, but we're not talking about that here, right? We're talking about someone who hasn't trained in many years.
Well,
So yeah,
that was never really clarified. Is there an expiration date? Could mean, is it within months, years, decades? How long before someone would, know? Like you mentioned, 20 years, and I would like to think most people think, yeah, you haven't done it in 20 years. There's no way you can do it now for a
I
variety
mean,
of
I can
reasons.
see I can see the drills. You know what I mean? Like I'm thinking about it, I can see them, but to be able to perform them, there's no way. I mean, not now. I could might be able to redo it. Give me some time and some ammo and some things to practice. But the skill set's gone.
Yeah, and I guess that's the nuance that you added in there. I don't know if Dylan, you had that in mind. This idea that um, that the black belt, whatever black belt they attained, has developed higher skills that got them to black belt. That if you reintroduce them to material, they will regain it faster than in their original training. It won't take them 3.5, 4 years to get back to the black belt level quality work, but it could take them a little bit. They'll go faster than a fresh student, but maybe
I
still
mean,
take some time.
even your muscles, your muscle reaction times will be different. You're 20 years older or 10 years older. Your 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 weight's going to be different. Your move, you know what I mean? Like your knees are going to be
Your
different.
body's
Like
different. Yeah.
your body's different. I mean, you'd have to relearn, quote unquote, relearn your balance. I mean, you know,
Are we talking about refreshing, dusting it off, or are we talking about it expiring? I guess my difference in thought is, do we take a student who obtained their black belt at some point and go, you know what, you've been training for 20 years, or you haven't trained in name a time frame, it doesn't matter really. We're gonna knock you down to white belt and then have them come up, or do we respect the fact that they did the work at one point and have that humility to, and I think that's the word I'm looking for. I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for, but and work with them
I don't think I was
in
saying
that
that.
fashion.
When we are talking about expiring, I was thinking more like milk than I was death. That the idea that over time things go bad. They still remain like milk still remains milk, but it's sour and chunky, right? So that's what sort of like I was thinking with expire versus like it's over, it's
So
dead.
to that, and so to that, I don't see that. I don't see it being spoiled and you throw it away and you just get
No,
new
no,
meat.
no, not I'm not saying you throw it, turn it into cheese, but do something new with it. But I more the idea. I don't know about the other guys, but yeah, I've had people come to my school with brown belts, and do I say, take off that brown belt, put on this white belt. You're not a brown belt anymore. You're training with me, or something like that. No, I'm like, okay, you earned a brown belt. If you want to wear your brown belt as we train, you're welcome to that. And but I just so you know you won't advance to the next level unless you can show me sufficient proficiency in all the other stuff. So,
And that,
that's how I play it. I respect what they've earned. So if they come to me and say I was a second degree black belt in Goju Karate, and or even better, Shorin-ryu or Ishin-ryu. And I'll say, okay, yeah, you're welcome to train here. That'll be great to have another black belt here. And they say, yeah, I haven't trained though in like 10 years. I got married, I had a kid, and blah blah blah. I'm like, fine, black belt. But if they like come in and they all say, I was hoping I could teach
Right. There's a
kata,
difference.
then I
Right.
would say, well, let's see you get used to how I teach Seisan kata first, and then once I feel like you've got it to how I want it to be trained, then yeah, absolutely, I'd love to help. So I am
Eh,
saying that in some ways they're expired, but there's also just differences
Right.
like
Yeah, I don't
that.
remember, Chris. I mean, when you came to learn Kempo, I think I told you you could wear your black belt,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
And
you chose to wear a white belt, I think.
I did, yeah, because
Yeah.
I mean it because I wanted to, you know, because I didn't have the knowledge of Kempo. You know what I mean? I mean, I had knowledge of my system, and I didn't feel, but it was different. Like when I would teach, I wanted to show the students, that I was a black belt, and they were, the parents were in good hands. There was a black belt there, but
Yeah.
uh, but training with you, yeah, I wanted to wear the whatever the respective belt I was at.
Yeah, and I just had a guy come that bought his black belt with me. He's actually a couple months ahead of me, and he's talking about coming back. You'd love him, Chris. His name's Jeff.
Okay,
Good dude. And I'm like, okay, well, you're a second degree black belt. Come back, wear your second degree black belt, but we got to start at like, the forms of yellow belt and start making sure you can do them. Because his skill set's gone. Like he just doesn't have that anymore. And he was super skilled at the time, and I think it'll take him a short amount of time to get back,
all right.
but there's some time, whatever that time is.
Yeah. I mean, but I guess getting back to you, Dylan, because I can see we're running out of time.
Are we
Is this
really?
in line with, yeah, according to my clock, we got about 7 minutes left. Um, if we want it. But anyway, Dylan, I mean, you were saying when I was like, facetiously talking about belts being like milk and turning them into cheese. You were still. It sounded like you're still saying, I don't believe that happens at all. There's no degradation. There's no need to like treat this person any differently, regardless of the amount of time that's passed since they last trained. They are still exactly the way they were when they earned the black belt. Is that what you're saying?
I think that, I think that they're I agree with Rob. I agree with the panels in that yes, if you don't use it, I don't believe it goes away. I don't believe it just goes away and is just gone. Um, I think that you can develop it and sharpen up at a relatively fast rate. I don't think that um, I think the encouragement is important. I think that if someone steps out of the martial arts for a while, I think saying, "All right, cool, let's do this," like we settled on, yeah, wear your belt. Like Chris said, no, I decided I didn't want to wear my belt, but I'm sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure there was a lot of valuable, whether it be on the mat or off the mat, that Chris had a lot of insight in speaking with Rob and really understanding the system and things like that. So I guess my point is there's value regardless to me, there's value regardless of how long a student is out of it, if that makes sense.
There's definitely value, in my opinion, too. I mean, I wouldn't look at somebody who's taken any kind of break in training as like value less or any other training too. And I've never been anywhere where anyone was treated like that. I would, or you were saying humility, I would say I've never had a teacher demonstrate disrespect for the accomplishments of a fellow martial artist. They don't, say, well, yeah, but that was 2017 when you got that, and you told me you haven't been training since then. You're a white belt. Never,
Right, right,
never
right.
had
I
that
mean,
experience,
right.
and I wouldn't even look at somebody like that, like you said. But I guess I'm still with the idea that and I think the panel's generally on the same page that there's, use it or lose it. It's as with all things. I guess when I talk to people they ask, how long do I think this could take? And I go, well, it just depends on how much time you can put in. If you're coming in and training 3 to 4 days a week and you're staying in my school, for an hour and a half each time at least, you could progress possibly much faster than somebody who's only coming once or twice a week and only doing a 45-minute class each time. It's just how much time you put into it is how quickly you progress, but I think how much time into it is how well you even maintain. I don't know about you guys as instructors, but for myself, since I'm moving from a full-time student to now a full-time instructor, that's like one of my greatest fears is that I'm like losing skills that I had when I was like going for
Sure.
promotion. And I'm just like, standing there and doing corrections. And so it was nice. One of my recently minted black belts said, "Hey, Sensei, now that I'm a black belt, I just want you to know if ever you want to let loose on somebody, I'm there for you." I was like, "Aw, that's sweet, and that's exactly what I want."
That's funny.
Okay, before we end on this one, any final thoughts and your sort of version of what this is? Is there an expiration date on a black belt?
I mean, the only thought I would say is, I think we narrowed it down with black belt, but it kind of applies to all belts too. I mean, you
Sure.
know, you were a purple belt a couple of years ago. I mean, you're still a purple belt. You just, it can take you longer to get back into it.
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, not that people walk around saying they're purple belts unless you're jujitsu, right? There's no people who do that. Some people say they're purple belts.
That'd be pretty exciting. I think
Yes.
that I hear people bragging that they're blue belts.
Yeah, it's a big deal apparently, I guess. I don't know, but I don't know heard anybody, post that they're purple belts of anything except for jujitsu people.
Chris, final thoughts?
Yeah, I think one of the things that Rob brought up was kind of like age. Yeah, I think age is a huge factor. Like you said, especially talking about the losing skill set and stuff like that. Just as Rob said, you may not move as fast, or your body may have more limitations. I think age is a huge factor. You know,
It definitely something to be considered, but I will I think at least Rob and Chris, I don't know about you, Dylan, you look really young to me. But if you remember Jack LaLanne,
Oh yeah.
famously demonstrated how elderly people could be brought into tip-top physical shape. But even he said, as a side, it definitely takes longer to do than with a younger person, but it is not impossible just because you're older. And
It's not impossible.
no.
No.
All right, Dylan, final thoughts.
No, I think I've said what I need to. Thanks.
Okay, fair enough. All right, then, gentlemen, with that, I'll say Yame. Thank you, panelists, and thank you, listeners, for your attention, or I guess also viewers. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic, and you can share them to our threads, Mizuchi_dojo, or you can email us at mizuchi.dojo.hanbu@gmail.com. Also, please consider supporting this podcast by subscribing via our Patreon. For $1 a month, you'll not only help keep this podcast on the air, but our dollar subscribers can vote on what topic they want the panel to discuss in the next recording session. Higher contributors can have their feedback read on air, and even higher contributors can get a regular shout out for the martial arts school of their choice. You can find more information about this in our show notes as well as on our Patreon page. Mata Yasai.